Hey, how's it going? It's your challenger coach, Adam Moriarty-Isles, here to bring you our newest Mobalytics High-ELO tier list for patch 9.22. If you're wondering about Senna, we won't be ranking her this list as we currently don't rank new champions until we get enough data on them, but I suspect her to be a popular champion to feed on. If you're interested in how the patch notes will affect each champion individually, check out our patch rundown video, but for now, you're here for the tier list, so let's jump right into it. For the top lane High-ELO list, our starting S tier roster will be Jax, Kled, Vladimir, Riven, and Camille. Camille has been increasing in popularity as of late due to her ability to easily snowball during the laning phase and transition into a split push monster, pushing her from an A tier champion to an S tier one. But Adam, she's always been able to do this, so why is her strength in the laning phase more valuable now in High-ELO? Well, that's because the season is coming to a close, and with a meta that already revolves around early skirmishes, you better believe games are going to be decided way earlier as people's mental fortitude just breaks because they are being held back from the rank that they deserve. That means with Camille's excellent 1v1 abilities, gank setup, and skirmish, she can secure a victory early on. I'm not even joking when I say this, but near the end of the season, people are more likely to spam next if they are losing the laning phase, hoping that next game or next season will be better. This is why a champion like Camille is really optimal for climbing right now, because she can abuse this kind of poor mentality. Speaking of optimal champions for climbing, Kayle is not one of them. After the nerfs to her Q and W, well, okay, who am I kidding? The W nerfs are pointless. Mostly just the Q nerf, she's gonna fall from S tier to B tier. Though the nerf might not seem like much, what you need to remember is Kayle right now is only powerful because he can hold her own in the laning phase, which is an extremely important part of the game in High-ELO currently. If you take away her main trading tool in a meta that's all about early pressure, how's she supposed to scale? How's she supposed to lane against literally anything? There is a chance that maybe she falls down to A tier, but that would only be because Kayle players miss her Q anyways and then kill you. Currently, we believe that this will have a large impact on her laning phase, causing her to really struggle and mostly become her counter pick, as it will be way too risky to blind pick someone who has such a bad laning phase. As for the rest, we got some minor changes that I'll list off. Gnar is going to B tier, which is pretty solid for him in solo queue as pros are practicing him more and more often. Shen will be moving back to A tier from B tier, mostly due to the priority of Kayle going down, which is almost single-handedly reducing his pick rate because that matchup is impossible. The GOAT of top lane, Ornn, will make it to A tier as one of the strongest tank options in solo queue at the moment, due to his annoying laning phase combined with one of the best late games a tank can possibly have due to the free items he gives his whole team and himself. And lastly, Pantheon is gonna drop to B tier from A tier due to the nerfs to his early game. This guy just keeps getting hit by nerf after nerf after nerf, and personally, I think Riot should do the same thing to Kai'Sa. I know she has a nerf this patch, but maybe another one. Maybe to Kha'Zix too. Just nerf them both. Put down in the comment section below which champion you think should get repeated nerfs, because those two are my picks. Moving down to the jungle, our starting S tier roster for the High-ELO list will be none other than Karthus, Kha'Zix, Echo, Rengar, Nidalee, and yup, Shaco. We moved Shaco from B tier to S tier, but wait. What's that sound? Can you hear it? Yeah, it's the sound of every Shaco main furiously typing in the comment section about how this tier list is wrong and Shaco's the worst champion in the game. Stat-wise though, he isn't, as he boasts the highest win rate to play rate ratio out of any jungler Masters Plus at a 56.19% win rate and a 4.3% play rate. But there are so many High-ELO Shaco players and they all say he's bad, so that must be true. They know more about Shaco than you do. Well, you're not wrong, but to that I'll say, how can there be so many of them if he's bad right now? Think about it. I remember a time where there were 5 Shaco 1-tricks in the top 50 of NA, and there were 4 in the top 50 of EU West, and people were still saying he was weak. Anyways, rants aside, he suits the current skirmish meta, and ever since his mini rework, he has returned to being an early game menace. That's because now he can actually clear the jungle, and he has enough damage to kill people in the early game. Who knew that invisibility plus clear speed plus burst damage would be good in solo queue? We're also going to clean up the list a little bit by removing Skarner because he's the last of his kind, last to be picked in Dodgeball, and likely the last to be picked in a High-ELO game because he barely ever sees any play. Rek'Sai, on the other hand, we overestimated her usefulness post-laning phase as she can snowball, but she currently can't do anything against carries like Xayah and Kai'Sa, especially if her flash is down, so we dropped her from S tier to B tier, pretty much swapping places with Shaco. Xin Zhao, though, after many hard-fought battles, has finally become a man and evolved to Win Zhao, going from B tier to A tier. Though he is not as popular in the West, and I would really love, just to make my job easier, just to copy and paste the part of the script where I say he's an early game skirmish champion. That's not the real reason that he has become stronger at the moment in both Korea and China, and that's really because he's a counter pick at the moment. To which champions, you might ask? Well, that's because he's got strong matchups into AP junglers like Gragas and Elise, but also Shaco, and they're all quite popular at the moment, especially in those regions. Just do me a favor and avoid the Echo matchup, as it's pretty much trolling the game if you opt into it, as it's impossible for Xin Zhao to catch an Echo. You just gotta cue the Benny Hill music at that point and watch like Xin and Garen just chase Echo around the map. I'm pretty sure the only way an Echo dies to a Xin Zhao is if his Wi-Fi gives him like 4K ping or his mouse dies, and even then I'm uncertain if it will happen. Our starting S tier roster for the High-ELO list will be Talon, Katarina, and Zoe. This week, there weren't a lot of changes to mid lane, but we are still going to add in Victor to B tier. He's not in an amazing spot right now just because the mid meta is mostly about skirmishing and Victor's not really about that life, but the buffs that came in last patch were enough to make it so that if he does manage to hit 2 to 3 items before his Nexus explodes, then he'll be able to 1v9 teamfights at the very least. The problem being, of course, that in high-elo games, skirmishes are the name of the game, and though Victor does do better in them compared to before, he doesn't exactly excel in that area. If his bot lane, team manages not to throw for a Cloud Dragon or Scuttle, then he will be rewarded by being able to actually build impactful items like Leandries, Lichbane, Zhonya's, or Banshee second, followed by a Hat of Death. Think of him like Mage Kassadin, but less useless early game, but without the amazing counter picks to compensate. He does have a strong matchup into Kayle, but unfortunately she just got nerfed, so unlucky. Someone who isn't unlucky though is Medusa wannabe Cassiopeia moving from B to A tier. You might be thinking to yourself, she has similar strengths and weaknesses compared to Victor, why is she A tier while the glorious Victor is not? The two main differences is that Cassiopeia comes online slightly faster because once she has AA, she can actually join in on skirmishes and do decently. The second one, and most important, is that she has Miasma. Miasma's grounded effect provides better utility than every augment upgrade combined in this meta just due to how everyone plays high mobility champions in high-elo. Cassio's W can single-handedly win early fights, duels, or teamfights and is on par with Grey Smokescreen in terms of annoying to deal with. Though it is unique for a mage who can't actually roam at all because, you know what, she doesn't have boots to do well in a current meta, it just comes down to her ability to stop champions from carrying due to Miasma. It just goes to show you that sometimes in League of Legends, it's not about carrying, even though Cassiopeia can definitely do that, but it's how well you can deny the enemy Braindead Riven or Irelia from carrying. You know, the Riven will just get grounded, she can't spam her abilities, and then she dies, giving you that juicy shutdown money she got from making the enemy Aatrox feed and never want to dance again. Welcome to the bot lane high-elo list, where our starting S tier roster will be Ashe, Caitlyn, Heimerdinger, Lucian, and Draven. This week we actually got some changes to the list with both Xayah and Kai'Sa moving down from S tier to A tier. I should note though that they fell down to A+ tier and both could very well make it back to S tier after some slight adjustments. Everyone who has watched Worlds or any competitive play at all has been seeing the dominating presence of both of these champions, and I would be surprised if I saw any challenger bot lane player that didn't have one of these champions in their champion pool, as pretty much everyone does nowadays. They both just have too much presence in the bot lane, and that's why Xayah will be receiving a nerf to her W attack speed, and though it might not seem like much, it could have a large impact on her. This is because Xayah players at the moment are currently going Essence Reaver into IE for extra burst and power during the mid game, relying on lethal tempo plus her W for enough attack speed during the early to mid game. With the nerf coming in, it will be harder to pull off this style of build, likely causing her to return to having to build a Zeal item second. This might not seem like a big deal as she's done this build in the past, or some still currently do it, but the truth is in solo queue, burst is better than DPS. That's because you want to be able to take advantage of enemy misplays by securing picks with your burst damage more often than you want DPS for teamfights. In solo queue, teamfights might not always happen and they can get really messy, so DPS isn't important every single game. But you can be damn sure someone is going to walk into the enemy jungle alone for zero reason multiple times a game, and you better have the upfront damage to kill them before your team overchases into a choke point around Baron and dies. The other downside to the lower attack speed in the early game is that it'll make it so that sometimes you won't be able to get that extra feather in so you can get the root off early enough in early skirmishes to actually get your CC down. As for Kai'Sa, she's receiving a nerf to her Q isolation damage, and as her main source of burst, this is going to hurt her quite a bit. That's because the reason she is so popular for high-elo marksman players is that she is one of the only marksman champions with so much agency on her own. She doesn't have to rely on others as often, mostly because she has the ability to assassinate people. You know, she's just gonna zoom in with her ultimate, Q you in isolation, try and click on you for that auto attack, only to misclick because you're already dead. Let's be real, her Q is giving her way too much dueling power, and when she's gonna lose that damage, not only is it gonna be harder to snowball, but she's gonna have a harder time making those clutch proactive plays during the mid to late game. I'm not gonna lie, I fully expect there to be an increase in Kai'Sa spotting moments this patch where she's just gonna ult into a team fight or a duel only just to die instantly because she thought she would deal way more damage. On behalf of non-marksman players, I would like to take this moment to thank Riot for the hard work they put in on this patch. Your contributions to my end of season climb will not be forgotten, as I might not have to ban Kai'Sa anymore. For our High-ELO support S tier roster, we have Thresh, Rakan, and Janna. This time around, we really only moved things off the list or down the list, starting with Vel'Koz the Eyeball Lord being demoted from B tier to the Shadow Realm, as it just can't keep up with the engage heavy support meta. Pyke also got sent to the Shadow Realm, but from A tier. He is just god-awful at the moment in a meta where he is supposed to shine. The last set of nerfs just really hurt him a lot, as he is no longer able to survive fights or properly regen up so that he can come back and clean up with his ultimate. Every time I see a Pyke locked in at the moment, I know it's doomed if the enemy team just picks a support with CC like Leona or Thresh, because if Pyke gets hit even once, which we all know he's going to, he's just gonna get blown up instantly. Let me lay the scene down for you. Old Pyke, he's gonna invade the enemy jungle solo. Place some wards, 4 people are gonna collapse on him, alright? The Pirates of the Caribbean theme comes on louder and louder as he narrowly escapes. After his narrow escape, he will type in all chat, "This is the day you'll always remember as the day you almost caught Captain Jack Pyko." Then he's gonna loop around, come back, get a triple kill with his ultimate, and that's what old Pyke used to do. During those days, I used to call him my main man, Money Man Pyke, but instead I'm gonna have to change his name to Moneybag Pyke because he's just a fast-moving bag of money for the enemy team. Unfortunately, that's all he's good for now. He's just a walking pile of shillings. That makes it so that our last change to the list will be moving Nautilus down from S tier to A tier. This is mostly going to be due to the huge nerf to his ultimate damage impacting his ability to snowball and get kills during the early game. Don't get me wrong, it's not that he doesn't really scale or has other uses thanks to his CC, it's just that the lack of damage on his ult should deny him a fair amount of potential all-in kills, which would normally allow him to snowball during the laning phase. With his reduced laning power, he might not be as consistently able to smash lane, and it will reduce his ability to roam as he won't have as much lane priority. You guys know what I'm talking about. Nautilus would just R into Q combo someone and they would probably die, but now they actually have a chance to survive and return damage, and that might result in a lost 2v2. The important part to note about this is that any nerf that impacts a champion's all-in pattern during the laning phase will greatly hurt their ability to snowball, even a support champion like Nautilus who isn't focused on damage. And it can even bait you into using old attack patterns that might backfire now because you just don't have the damage to pull them off. Thanks again for watching our High-ELO tier list video for patch 9.22. Feel free to ask us any questions in the comment section below for us to answer in the next Q&A. We will be releasing a low-elo tier list as well very shortly, so stay tuned for that, and make sure to check out more stuff at mobalytics.gg, and I'll see you out on the Rift.